Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Wahoos Weekly, your weekly in-depth look at the Pensacola Blue Wahoos both on and off the field. He's Charlie Hobart, I'm Eric Bramer. The Blue Wahoos are in the midst of their longest homestand of the season. Charlie, 12 games in 13 days. How you feeling?
Tired, but good. You know, I love baseball, and so long as there's baseball being played, I think I'm going to be fine.
The Rocket City Trash Pandas, the Los Angeles Angels AA affiliate, are in town, and it's always a novelty when a team from the North Division comes down because we often don't get a chance to see them. It's usually just one trip a year, and Rocket City, a newer entrant into the Southern League, their first year of play was 2021. For whatever reason, across different players, different managers, the Blue Wahoos have had the number of the Angels affiliate with some very dramatic wins, some very silly wins. The common denominator has been wins, and it looks like this year Rocket City is struggling again to figure out the right combination to turn their prospects into wins on the field.
Yeah, it's been a big issue on the pitching side of things. They're among the league leaders as a team in walks. They're among the league leaders as a team as runs given up, earned and unearned. It's just kind of been an issue on the pitching end. If you're the Wahoos, I think you have the chance to be real selective, you know? That doesn't necessarily mean taking a ton of pitches. It doesn't necessarily mean working deep counts, but if you see pitcher with a lot of movement, a pitcher really nailing the edges, you don't have to offer at those corner borderline pitches right away because odds are you're either going to draw a walk or get something a little closer to the meat of the plate. So I think that's what the Wahoo should be looking to do.
One of the things that we've come to learn just philosophically from the Los Angeles Angels is they like to hurry their prospects along. We've seen that work, we've seen it not work, but anytime someone is even at the AA level succeeding, it's probably a safe bet that they're soon going to be on the big league club. You've been following from afar the Los Angeles Angels big league club, and hate to say it, but you know, a decade without a playoff run, it seems like something is missing from that equation.
I mean, no joke, and when the big league club is struggling, it's almost guaranteed that the entire organization is struggling. Sometimes you see these really good teams have really great farm systems, but those are typically the teams you see in the playoffs every few years, and the Angels, unfortunately, have not been one of those teams. When you do rush prospects, at least what we're talking about here, which is AA baseball, one team's not going to be all that successful because as soon as they get a collection of guys going, they're just kind of shuffling them along. So it's hard to judge a AA team, I should say, because they're all in development and everyone's moving up and everyone's moving down and they're moving every which way. So it's hard to really judge the Rocket City Trash Pandas, but you know, it is what it is, and they're struggling right now, and we'll see if they can work out of it.
One thing that cannot be denied is the off-field success of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. The former Mobile Bay Bears moved up to the greater Huntsville area for the 2020 season that turned out to not happen, but they began in earnest in 2021, and pretty much from day one, even before they played a game, they were a merchandise success because the name, the Rocket City Trash Pandas, and the logo, a raccoon in a space suit that is launching off a garbage can. It's great, right?
It's flawless. They're also one of the few teams with 4 words in the name, Rocket City Trash Pandas. I don't know what went into the marketing meeting. I don't know if that was a super long meeting or a super quick meeting and they just wrapped it up, but it's really hard to go wrong. I mean, the minor leagues have kind of become notorious across sports and sports fans with their wacky mascots and their crazy names. Trash Pandas are definitely among the top in terms of merch sales, I assume. I mean, I'm certainly considering getting something.
Well, yeah, they can take it a little bit too far in terms of giving a minor league team a wacky name, but as long as I receive a paycheck from a team called the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, I won't be throwing stones from a glass house. Rocket City, named for the greater Huntsville area. They play in Madison, Alabama, and the thing in that area, going back to the 1960s and even before, is the space industry. Are you a big space guy, or were you growing up?
I never really did hit that stretch. I think it's cool. I watched Interstellar. You know, like I think outer space is super unknown, and I would like to know more. They just did the Artemis 2 launch, a month ago now at this point?
Yeah, around the back of the moon and back to the Earth. That's the happy part.
Dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
I don't really know how it happened. I couldn't tell you why it worked. But I think it's pretty darn neat that they made it to somewhere they hadn't been before.
Well, yeah, the old baseball team in the Huntsville area was the Huntsville Stars, named for the same theme, and they became the Biloxi Shuckers in 2015. You and I saw Project Hail Mary a couple weeks ago.
We did.
That's a space movie.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was a good time. What I find interesting is NASA now focuses, I think, mostly on the ocean. Did you know about this?
No.
Something along those lines. They're really big into the ocean, which is in my mind, the complete opposite of space. But it's similar in the sense that we just don't know anything about what's down there, and I think that's arguably more terrifying.
Yeah, I think we'd best leave what's going on beneath the water and up in the skies to just the unknown. I'm at peace with the unknown, and I think that's a good place for me to be as a baseball broadcaster. I actually had a chance to go to the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville when we traveled to Rocket City a few years ago. Had a chance to get inside one of the rockets and, get cramped in. I'm 6'1", and that, I believe, would exclude me from doing any actual space work. I'm also mostly blind. I have to wear corrective lenses. So would you make a good astronaut?
No.
No? Just
No.
leave that to the imagination?
I mean, if you know me, you would know I would freak out. I don't do that great in tight spaces, and I don't do that great with being really close to not having a life anymore.
Okay.
And I would always be really afraid if I were in space at any point. So that's why I'm down here. I've gotten about as close to sea level as possible, and I'm going to just keep it here for now.
Well, you're in the right line of work to be working in minor league baseball, because I don't think we'll be launching you into the stars anytime soon.
I mean, they sent a chimp up there. I'm not
They
that
did.
far off.
No. Well, depending on the day. Let's talk a little bit about the Blue Wahoos. We've talked kind of position by position these last few weeks as we've gotten to know this team a little bit better. On the relief pitching side, we've got a bunch of guys who throw hard and sometimes have difficulty finding the strike zone. That seems to be the common theme. But as you said, Rocket City is a team that is having trouble finding the strike zone. It seems to be widespread across the league. Philosophically, I think teams are chasing this guy who throws nasty pitches as hard as he can, but sometimes that leads to command issues, and that, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you're on, leads to a lot of late game volatility where relief pitchers aren't having success protecting leads because they're allowing a lot of base runners. It certainly seems to have borne out the first few weeks of this year.
I mean, absolutely. It's such a trend to get the hard thrower or the guy that has, this much break or X amount of spin rate. And yes, those numbers do mean something, and they're not to be ignored, but they can't be the whole idea. And then, not to mention, the pitch clock has been implemented and these games are moving, but when teams are walking a combined 15, 16 batters between the two teams, it's making for some marathon games. It makes me feel like we're back in the mid-2010s before, Commissioner Rob Manfred said, hey, we should probably start moving these games along. It's definitely interesting baseball. It's making for some indecisive at-bats because obviously you want to get the good pitch, you want to take it, you want to drive it, but when you're up 3-0 for the third straight at-bat, it's kind of, you have to put the bat on your shoulder. You have to kind of concede the batting average points and all that junk and take the walk.
Yeah, the Blue Wahoos in the span of a week on the road in Biloxi in early April had a game in which they walked 11 batters and then a game in which they walked 12 batters, but it's a long season and plenty of time to tighten those things up. Speaking of tightening some things up, we're about to head to a break, but we are about to introduce our viewers to Kevin Saucier. And I got to introduce you to Kevin Saucier, a 1980 World Series champion and Pensacola area native who is still here with the Blue Wahoos as a scout liaison. What was your first impression of Kevin Saucier when you met him?
Well, coming from where I come from, which is Wisconsin, and before that California, Southern. He's very Southern. He's got a big, thick accent, but he's a baseball guy, and he loves it. Obviously, as you mentioned, Eric, he's a World Series champion back with the Philadelphia Phillies. Anyone who knows sports knows playing in Philly is not for the faint of heart. So, especially as a pitcher going out there and you got all those fans, or if you walk the first guy, you're their greatest enemy. He knows ball. He understands not just how to pitch, but how to deal with life as a major league ball player. And that's really important to have as a scout, not just knowing the on-field stuff, but how these guys carry themselves off the field, how they handle pressure, how they handle, hate and love and all these good and bad things. He's perfectly cut out for this line of work.
One of the things that the Blue Wahoos do really well is roll out the red carpet for their scouts, and Kevin Saucier is a big part of that. As a scout liaison, he makes sure they have all the information they need, gives them a gift card to go to Bodacious, and a lot of other little perks that make the life of a scout a little bit more bearable and sometimes a very difficult industry. But we have benefited from the presence of scouts here because there's always someone here in town to see these teams, and they like to talk baseball just as much as we do, and you sometimes get some interesting nuggets from them, don't you?
Yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, I'm a big baseball fan, but I'm still very young. You know, I'm only 24 years old, and getting a chance to talk to these guys who have been around the game a lot longer than I have. They have a lot more experience. They've seen the game change in so many ways, more ways than I've been able to see it change, and the game's changed a lot in the past couple of years. So getting their perspective on what it's like now, how pitchers develop differently now, and what it was like then, and all that good stuff. It's such a treat getting to sit down and talk ball with guys who just know and, more importantly, love it, man. It's the best. It's
a rare treat when Kevin Saucier gets to join us in the broadcast booth, which he's done on a few occasions over the years, including our Ohio State College Baseball Series on BTN a couple months ago. Right now, you're in that chair. You're my broadcast partner. Do you think you have any semblance of the baseball know-how that Kevin Saucier has? Because, you know, you've been at this a few weeks now. Kevin Saucier has done a little bit of baseball broadcasting. Where would you stack up in terms of your baseball knowledge against Kevin Saucier?
Well, in terms of my baseball knowledge, I don't know if I'm nearly as close as I should be to Mr. Saucier. But I like to think I know a bit about ball. You know, I've watched baseball for over a decade, and, you know, some years I watched all 162 games. So I certainly understand the game to a degree that others wouldn't, but I don't think I'm ready to stack myself up against a World Series champion like Kevin Saucier.
Well, Kevin Saucier also is a pretty darn good cook. Do you know how to make a good shrimp Rockefeller?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe you can ask him, and maybe we can get Charlie to learn shrimp Rockefeller from Kevin Saucier. Kevin Saucier, Pensacola area native, a 1980 World Series champion, and a current scout liaison for the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, joins us after this on Wahoos Weekly.
At A1 Automotive, we do it all kinds of repairs for all kinds of vehicles. We do AC repairs, we do suspensions, we do pre-purchase inspections. We'll diagnose your problem and get it fixed. Free brake inspection. We can provide financing for any work we do. Veteran-owned, military, and first responders discounts. A1 Automotive, 403 Beverly Parkway, Pensacola.
Gilmarine, your one-stop shop for all your boating needs. We offer a vast selection of parts, accessories, and electronics. Discover our range of used boats in every size, shape, and brand, all ready to get you on the water today. And we provide expert advice and top-notch customer service to ensure you have the best boating experience. We service all outboard, inboards, stern drives, jet drives, and personal watercraft. Our certified staff will get you back on the water. Visit Gilmarine at 3541 West Fairfield Drive, Pensacola.
Nestled in the heart of Pensacola, Dorothy's is a one-of-a-kind, community-driven cocktail bar by Oasis, Florida, created to sustain vital HIV and STI care across the Florida Panhandle. Inspired by the Wizard of Oz, rooted in inclusion and dripping with character, Dorothy's is a welcoming space with award-winning Oz-inspired cocktails, food by Steel Pony Diner, and an unmatched atmosphere. Join us 7 days a week in downtown Pensacola, located directly across from Maritime Park and the Blue Wahoo Stadium.
Empire Truck Sales, located at 2255 West Detroit Boulevard in Pensacola, is your Freightliner, Western Star, Detroit Diesel, and Cummins dealer for Northwest Florida. Open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., providing sales, service, and parts. Empire Truck Sales is also your Oasis dealer for Freightliner custom chassis RV and motorhome repairs. Running I-10 will get you in.
Welcome back to Wahoos Weekly. I'm broadcaster Eric Bramer, and today our special guest is Kevin Saucier, our good buddy and a scout liaison for the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. That's what you're currently doing, Kevin, but for those who don't know, take me through the back of the baseball card. In your case, literally, you had a very successful playing career, and it all started here in the greater Pensacola area.
Yeah, it did, Eric. Of course, I went to the Little Leagues here, over there in Warrenton, then in Myrtle Grove, then went to high school. at Escambia High School, which back then in the 70s, we had 4 guys come out of high school that played in the major leagues. Of course, I was very fortunate to have a coach by the name of Fred Waters, which you're very familiar with your father being, with the Twins organization. But then I signed a professional contract in 1974 out of high school in the second round by the Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, I made every stop going through the minor leagues, and at that time you had rookie ball, A ball, double A, triple A, and then the major leagues. And was very fortunate enough in 1980 that we won the World Series that year. And then after that, I got traded and played a few years with Detroit. And then when I got out of the game, I ended up scouting what was called the Major League Scouting Bureau. A lot of people are not familiar with that, but it was tied in with the commissioner's office. And we represented all 30 major league clubs. And then after that, for my last 4 years, I ended up working with the St. Louis Cardinals. And then when I retired, I called Mr. Quint Studer, and he says, I got a job for you. He wanted to be the liaison to take care of any MLB personnel comes in here. And as like last night, we've got 10 scouts in here for the series. But most of the guys that have never been here, that work for all these different organizations, and believe me, we got a lot of different organizations, the word is around the country, they have to come to Pensacola, Florida. It's just the way they're treated here. And Quint Studer and his wife, Rishi, has a lot to do with that.
Well, you mentioned the name Fred Waters, and Fred was a longtime coach here in the area. He also managed the rookie-level Elizabethton Twins in Elizabethton, Tennessee, and a lot of great Twins players had Fred Waters as their first manager. What made Fred so remarkable? Because his legacy lives on to the point where now we call our free youth clinic on Play Ball Weekend the Fred Waters Baseball Camp.
Well, Fred, he had his way of being able to communicate with you as a kid. His main deal was he wanted you to do well in baseball, but he also wanted you to be I call it a very productive citizen. In other words, let's do the right things here. And you bring that up about how Fred influenced a lot of guys' lives, and one of them me and you have talked about before that's in the Hall of Fame, Burt Blyleven. Mm-hmm. A lot of baseball fans know that name because, yes, he had a heck of a breaking ball, and he gives Fred Waters credit to this day about his breaking ball was so good, and me too. He was outstanding teacher. Let me just say that, outstanding.
The great moments of Philadelphia Phillies history kind of coalesce into that 1980 team because while a lot of people my age think about the White Sox and the Cubs and the Cleveland Indians/Guardians as being teams that endured a long drought, for a lot of baseball history, that was the Phillies, and that was a pretty impressive team to break a drought in Philadelphia. That team is still looked upon with reverence now more than 40 years later.
You are true about that, Eric. That was actually the first World Championship team that the Philadelphia Phillies had ever won. And a lot of it had to do, it was the chemistry that we had, and one of them is not in the Hall of Fame, and me and you have a disagreement, was Pete Rose. We had Pete Rose on the team, but he was definitely a difference maker. He was a gamer. He come to play, and that was Pete Rose's style.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Pete Rose. It's not my place to offer my opinion, but I know you feel strongly as a former teammate of his that you think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
No doubt in my mind. What Pete did as a player compared to his manager, I'm going to admit this here. Yes, the rules of gambling is in every clubhouse. He did it as a manager, and as far as anybody ever knew, he did not bet on his team. But what is baseball doing now? What are they pushing? Gambling. I mean, every direction. And I still think there's a chance he will get in the Hall of Fame. I wish he was alive. But he told me this when we had this reunion a few years ago in Philly. He told me this straight up. He says, I'm probably going to go in, he says, but I won't be on this earth to see it.
Your nickname during your playing career was Hot Sauce, and not just because of your last name, Saucier, because you brought some spice to the mound. A lot of people think that's a 21st century invention with pitchers showing emotion on the mound, but you were a pretty animated guy, and you probably made a few enemies along the way just by the way that you went about your business, didn't you?
I did, and it didn't bother me, and I'm not going to deny this either. There was times where it's not as prevalent as this back when I played, that you had to knock somebody down. And we had rivalries back then with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I remember one night, Burt Blyleven was one of them. Me and him got into it one night. But he'd already knocked a couple of players on their rear end, and you're not going to tolerate it. And let me use you another example of that. When we did win the World Series in 1980, we played Kansas City. George Brett was wearing us out. Well, flipped that whole series around with us with George Brett, and he quit hitting. Dickie Knowles knocked George Brett on his rear end. It's probably one of the best knockdown pitches you'll ever see without hitting somebody. And that's just the way the game was played back then.
Well, you have a brief career with the Tigers, and then you move on to the next stage of your career. You could have just left baseball behind because you've got a lot of other talents and skills. You briefly had a restaurant here in the area. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think it was a place before its time, Eric. It had the theme of baseball. I thought it was neat and still think it was neat to this day. And actually, there was a couple other restaurants that come after me that kind of copied the style that did very well. But it was a place that was before its time. I learned a lesson the hard way. I think if I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't. Although probably one of my good hobbies is I love to cook. I love to get in the kitchen and cook. I did do a cooking show here one time down there for Bodacious. The students own that place too, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy really getting in the kitchen and cooking.
It was kind of a Dave and Buster's type of concept, right? With some games and stuff that people could do.
Yeah, we even had a batting cage in there with it. Got a lot of people coming just love to get in the batting cage and hit. Another little thing we did, which I thought was neat, the scoreboard that gave you your number when your order was up. It just come up. We had a big scoreboard in there. It was something very unique and different.
My kind of place. Well, after the restaurant, again, you go back into scouting, and the MLB Scouting Bureau is something that, of course, provides a great service for a lot of teams, but it's not something the casual fan might even know exists, because the MLB Scouting Bureau exists as an independent source for people to get scouting reports on players, so that there's not a competition of 30 different teams trying to track down one amateur player. The Scouting Bureau, an impartial observer like you, can provide a scouting report. Who are some of the most memorable players that you remember scouting, either here regionally or elsewhere that you've been?
Oh, gosh. Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson. That's a pretty good athlete.
Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Chipper Jones. Kevin Brown. Here's a real quick story about Bo Jackson. I always heard about Bo Jackson. I remember walking into Auburn today to go see him, and I see this guy, this body, and I'm saying, ain't no way in hell this guy can run the way they say he can run. First thing he does, he hits a ground ball back to the pitcher. I got my stopwatch, and it was a 3.8. Now, you got to understand, from the right side, 3.8. Ain't very many guys going to run that. And then you start seeing the power of these guys. You see him throw. He could do it all. But and then I'll go back to Alex Rodriguez and Chipper Jones. Those guys were kind of guys you can go in there and watch BP, watch them take infields. I've seen enough. This is how good these guys work.
Well, baseball has become a global game, and you have had a chance to travel the world in your role as a scout, including to travel to the Olympics. That was, I know, a very unique cultural experience for you, and a unique cultural experience for them to meet someone from the Florida Panhandle.
That is correct, Eric. I did a lot of work for Team USA. We did the advanced work for them, and I went to a lot of different countries. And speaking, when you're talking about the Olympics, we was over there in 2008, and I met George Bush. Now, imagine that, me from Pensacola, Florida, and I go up to Mr. Bush. I call him GW. He got a kick out of that. He says, "You must be from the swamps of Louisiana." I said, "No, sir." But anyway, it was very interesting being in a communist country to sit down with the President of the United States and have a one-on-one for about 20 minutes. But it was fun. And actually, they closed off the whole stadium. His wife, his daughter, and him were the only fans in the stadium besides me and 3 other scouts. We were the only fans there. And it was an exhibition game against the Chinese.
After your scouting career ended, then you came back to Pensacola, and you felt compelled to give back to the game in your current role. What do you find meaning in doing now in 2026 as a scout liaison?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Eric. A lot of these guys I do know, it's the fact that once you've been around the game and you get out you miss it. And it's just being around people, talking baseball, even to the fans out here, and I'm talking about even season ticket holders, just talking to them about the game. Like the other night, I was showing one of the season ticket holders about the new batting cage we got here. He says, "I haven't seen it. Can I see it?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to show you around." But it's just meeting different people and talking to different people and telling them what you know about the game.
And you also want to grow the game for the next generation. And part of that is leading these youth clinics that we have. I mentioned the Fred Waters Baseball Camp, which will be held on Play Ball Weekend here, part of an annual tradition that we have. Not only is that a clinic, but it's also a free clinic, and it provides people from all different backgrounds a chance to play this great game.
That is true, Eric. And we normally get about 400 kids out here, and I've actually got a lot of former major leaguers that are from around here that are willing to give their time back into the community to these kids. But you hit the one key thing: it's a free clinic for these kids.
You have, in your time with the Blue Wahoos, seen a lot of really talented players come through, and more often than not, when I ask you your opinion on a player, you're right, even if it's an unpopular opinion at the time. Who are some of the guys that stood out to you from your time as a scout liaison here that have gone on to big league stardom?
Oh, gosh. Yuri Perez is one. Co-9 who come through here. Oh, and I'll give you one that probably wasn't on a lot of people's radar, that me and Mike Russell, a good buddy of mine, a former scout, we argued about this guy, and that's another thing about scouting, was Nick Fortis. He's about his fourth year now in the major leagues. But he wasn't a guy that really stood out, but you saw something in this guy that you knew he was going to be a major league player. But yeah, those are just a few examples of guys. Edwards is another one. He wasn't actually playing with another team. Oh, and there's another guy with Washington, Abrams. I mean, with him being with another team too. So that's the thing. You'll see other guys on another team. Langlear's the guy that's with Oakland, an all-star catcher. When the Braves had him, I don't know if you remember this or not, he wore us out when he
3-homer game against the Blue
Yes,
Wahoos,
he did.
yeah.
But you see, even with other teams, you see a lot of great players come through here.
Well, quickly before we go, I want to give you a chance to put our fans onto someone on this current team who you are excited about seeing this year and beyond.
Well, the kid that hit a home run the other night.
Dylan Lewis.
Yes. So far, what I've seen of him, I'm pretty impressed with him. And then the right-handed pitcher, can't even think of his name, that started I've only seen
Carson
him.
Milbrand, yeah.
He's got a chance too. And again, it's still early in the year. I'm still trying to get my feet wet, because I still enjoy watching these guys and try to give my opinion of them too.
Well, it'll be a fun season for the Blue Wahoos, a fun season to be around Kevin Saucier. As always, it's a pleasure to get to know him and a pleasure to share him with you here on this episode of Wahoos Weekly. For my broadcast partner, Charlie Hobart, this is Eric Bramer signing off. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week.
Thanks again.